Hello everybody, welcome back for another video. We're going to take a look at Bitcoin and Ethereum and altcoins and silver in this video. Before we dive on in, do me a little favor, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, leave a comment in the comment section for the algorithm. Otherwise, let's go ahead and dive on in, folks. What's the theme of this video? It's keep your eyes on the ball. Things look fine. All right, the day that I'm making this video, the market's down and we have up days, we have down days. People asking me in my live streams, Alex, why is the market dumping? Oh no, is it over? No. I've made a case. There's a little bit of room down. There's not a lot of room down. This is not a move down to even, April 7th lows, at least in Bitcoin. And altcoins, and not in Bitcoin or Ethereum, in altcoins, possibly. And I'll be very interested in buying some of those altcoins at those levels. But I'm not really selling any crypto right now. And I'm perfectly fine holding, given the fact that the downside for Bitcoin and Ethereum, in my opinion, is quite low. So it's quite little, excuse me. In other words, there's very little downside. Okay, so looking at the charts here, a few charts that I want to share with you today. Just again, this is a lull. It's a gully. I think I can make a case for that. We have Glassnode. I talked about in yesterday's video, the cohorts are buying. The wallets of all sizes are buying. Retail's buying, larger wallets are buying, and you can see it here. So Glassnode, I want to share this chart every time I see Glassnode posting it. After briefly leaning toward distribution, the largest Bitcoin holders are now back in accumulation. All wallet cohorts show varying degrees of buying, with the strongest activity in the 10 to 100 Bitcoin, which I did mention. Actually, that's funny. I didn't even read this, but this is what I talked about yesterday. The 10 to 100 Bitcoin cohort and the less than 1 Bitcoin groups, both reaching a score of 1.0, the highest possible. They are accumulating, but even the largest cohort, the 10K plus cohort, they are also accumulating, not as much as the other ones, but they're accumulating. What happens after accumulation is generally a rise in the price. So, and then, you can see it here. Look at when we started turning orange and red in January, February. That's when Bitcoin peaked. And then, as we were starting to exit the red, that's around the time Bitcoin bottomed. We're in a good spot. We are in an okay, healthy, we're in a fine spot right at this moment with Bitcoin. Another thing, so we have from CryptoCon here, volume oscillator, super signals. Just what do your eyes show you as far as the volume, etc.? Just look when we get under the blue line here. Just for example, the worst case example of this was after a mega parabolic spike in 2013. We got very, very low, and Bitcoin continued to go down after that. But we have not had that kind of mega spike that we saw in 2013, with the fact that this signal is lower than it's been at any other point other than 2013. But let's let's do the CryptoCon. Let's have CryptoCon explain it here. A new Bitcoin super signal has appeared, which happens when volume reaches extremely low levels inside a bull market. This is the lowest volume reading since 2014. The other super signal this cycle gave us a 200% run from October 2023 to March of 2024. Before that, only 2 other super signals were recorded. In October 2016, we went much higher after October 2016, and in December 2012, we went much higher after December 2012, which spawned the entire bull markets. There have been no moves to this cycle, 2 cycle top levels this cycle. Volume is ridiculously low, and the cycle is still in bull territory. Something huge is brewing. Is something huge brewing? We'll leave that to time, and truth and time go hand in hand. But as we are progressing and as I am seeing the potential of a V-shaped recovery in the stock market, I tend to agree with this, that Bitcoin still has plenty of room to go higher, and Ethereum has plenty of room to go higher. Ethereum Bitcoin has plenty of room to go higher, and Ethereum looks very bullish in comparison to Bitcoin. Does that mean alt season? It means something. Okay? It means something that Ethereum should outperform Bitcoin from here. Moving on. Bitcoin relative strength. This is on a shorter time frame. 14-day RSI has dropped below 30 points. Other metrics are also showing alerts. I think now all conditions are in place to start testing the all-time high. So when's the last time that Bitcoin's 14-day RSI was this low? It was when Bitcoin got to the 74,000 and change bottom. Now there were other times. I mean, look at, so it's not a perfect bottoming signal here, but look at this time in particular. We got up to 108, got below 108. I think that was around $91,000, and similar level to where we are now. What happened after that? Well, we climbed. Didn't put in a new all-time high here, so is it something like this? Whatever the case, this is not a time to be selling, in my opinion. So, moving on. Something else, something that should be this is, oh my goodness, something that you should not ignore. Okay, we have all these new MicroStrategy wannabe companies launching, and it's going to be interesting to see what this looks like over the next 2 years, 5 years, 10 years. I think it's going to contribute to the volatility to the upside and downside with Bitcoin, because I have a hard time believing that all these new Bitcoin holding companies are going to do it right. And so what happens when one of them gets liquidated? Wow, okay. But for right now, this should contribute to some upward potential in Bitcoin's price. So what are we looking at here? 21's recent Bitcoin purchases put into perspective. They casually swept off almost 10% of existing Bitcoin exchange balances on Bitfinex with their most recent purchases. That is not an insignificant amount. And Bitfinex has about 1/6 of the total exchange balance supply. So, just a casual 10% of their supply. And look at how quickly that went down. My goodness, look at that. So, not a supply shock, it's a demand shock. Okay, if we're going to have more of this, it will get pretty wild coming up here. But let's moving on. Something interesting that I have found here: when BlackRock talks Bitcoin with clients, they downplay the, quote, risk on and digital gold narratives. Instead, they highlight Bitcoin's role as a hedge against monetary, political, and system instability. The rationale is evolving, so is the investor base. Pensions, sovereigns, institutions. This is what we're talking about when it comes to a lot of the buying right now. Even though the buy volume is low, a lot of the buying is more focused on longer term holding than what we've seen any other cycle. And so it's going to be really interesting to see how that plays itself out throughout the bull market, in the bear market. What's a bear market even going to look like? We'll see. And so this is from BlackRock here. It's just really interesting to see the major events that they're highlighting here. U.S.-Iran escalation, January 3rd, 2020. 10-day return for Bitcoin after that, 12%. 60-day return, 20%. COVID outbreak, 10-day return, negative 25%. 60-day return, 21%. 2020 U.S. election challenges, 19%, 131%. And you can compare that with gold, with the S&P. And what you see, all these major events, yen carry trade unwinding was really the only one where it underperformed gold and the S&P 500 on a 10-day scale and on a 60-day scale. And now that I'm looking at this doesn't quite add up. 0% 10-day return, August 5th was the bottom. It was at $48,000. 10 days later, it was higher than $48,000. And then 60 days later, so they even got that one wrong. 60 days later, that was October, let's just say October 4th. October 4th, Bitcoin, I'm doing this all off the top of my head. It was definitely higher than August 5th. That was a bottom. That was the bottom in October. But it was like $58,000, up from $48,000. So like that's still more than 20% gain. That's funny that they messed that up. Anyway, I just noticed that. Let's move that on. Let's move that on. Let's move on. Altcoins. All right, Skyodelic. I've shared a lot of his stuff. Just know, Skyodelic is a permable. All right, so let's take this with a grain of salt. I'll read what he says, but I really just care about what the chart is showing us, and the chart is showing us something favorable towards holding altcoins. Altcoins are at the bottom. We'll see. Since the bull market began at the end of 2023, the lowest altcoin index has dropped. The lowest the altcoin index has dropped is 14. It is currently at 14 now. Although this feels like the hardest time to hold, it is actually the safest time because there isn't much lower it can go. When you combine this metric with the current position of ETH, I agree with this point, and ETH Bitcoin, we can see that higher is coming next. Stay in the game, Chads. I agree with that last sentence. Stay in the game. This is not, I'm not selling my altcoins. Not right now. Even though they're in a downtrend, even though there's certain ones that I think are going to provide better entries than where they are now, by and large, I'm not selling. I think it would be a bad idea. I think you would look back on it with some regret. But we'll see. This can certainly go lower than 14. And I'm curious to see how much ETH has an effect in this because Ethereum has been performing very well lately, while a lot of other altcoins have been bleeding. So if this includes Ethereum, which I think it does, then Ethereum can still hold up very well while a lot of other altcoins go down. But still, whatever the case, I am a holder of altcoins at this moment. I have no interest in selling, none. And if I'm wrong for the summer, summer in the Northern Hemisphere at least, so be it. I'm confidently holding my altcoins. Speaking of Ethereum, the tide is starting to turn for ETH, longest stretch of inflows in 2025. I've talked about this. I just wanted to point this out. And, a thing that I'm thinking through, let me just go to the ETH chart real quick. I do wonder if we have something from here that looks pretty similar to what Bitcoin's been doing over the last year and a half. So what do I mean by that? Well, let's go to Bitcoin. Here's my general thought is like, Bitcoin grind, up, grind, still grinding. I mean, we did lose a key level of support, but then what went right back up. And so you could call this entire thing a bit of a grind. And so maybe the next step is up. And then after that, grind for a while and then up. If that happens, it's death by 1,000 cuts for altcoins because there's never really a moment. We would need, I would love to see, if we're going to see a big alt season, I'd love to see Bitcoin just go vertical for a bit. And then the selling pressure for long-term holders is just so strong that they decide, I got to take some off the table. Hey, how about I invest in some altcoins? They're undervalued. Something like that, But if we do have this kind of grind, and then next leg up, that's when do we see that with altcoins? I don't know. But Ethereum, given what's going on with the spot Ethereum ETFs right now, and I do expect it to continue. We were net negative for the first 6 months of the Ethereum ETF's existence. And now we are accumulating, the ETFs are accumulating somewhere between 10 and 25 the amount of ETH, 25x the amount of ETH minted per day, that I wonder if what's going to happen over for a time, let me just say that for a time, is spike, chop, grind, chop, grind, spike, chop, grind. It's the same thing, as with Bitcoin. Maybe. Dare I say, I think we're in some kind of new territory with Ethereum. That it's just as good at this moment to be holding Ethereum as Bitcoin and to have a hodling mentality with Bitcoin, with Ethereum. It's too early to tell, but I am wondering. I'll just leave it at that because of the ETFs. because of the ETFs. Moving on. Last thing I want to point out, guys, I know this is a crypto channel. I've talked a lot about silver and gold. I've talked a lot about miners, gold miners, silver miners. My bags are packed. I am fired up. I'm up over the last 2 months, 50% in my silver miners and all the above. Silver miners, silver, gold, gold miners. And here's something to pay attention to. Silver has some catching up to do. Now, I mean, comparisons here, there's a bit of a delay. You know, you can see 2008, 2010, gold started in 2011. I remember that for sure. Gold started, and then silver caught up and had that big parabolic spike. I still have some silver from buying the peak in 2011. And I suspect that what's coming soon here is that silver is going to catch up again. So, and overshoot. You know, comment here, gold doesn't catch up to silver, silver catches up to gold and then overshoots. Is it time? It's time for silver to catch up to gold. So anyway, you know, again, as I'm making this video, it is a red day. We're down. And Ethereum is holding up better than Bitcoin, believe it or not. Ethereum is down 1.44%. Bitcoin's down 1.42% on the daily candle, but Ethereum is holding up better than Bitcoin. And you can see that in Bitcoin's dominance, just kind of hanging around, you know, nothing too crazy, not going shooting off like crazy. And that's we mostly have Ethereum to thank for that. So hang in there. Summer's a grind. I know. And we might be out of here in a couple weeks. So in a good way. So anyway, that is all I have for today. I hope you have a wonderful day, wonderful rest of your week. I will most certainly be seeing you in another video. Peace.